All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dance Studio Network podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Chatham, and we are ready to dive back into this new season together, so we thought it would be quite fitting if you haven't met the talented, the wonderful, the...
Hello, Miss Emily. My name is Emily Wilkes.
Yes, Miss Emily Wilkes. We've had a chance to kind of get to know each other over this last few years, and really neat things ahead of you from within the company. But before we get there, we want to kind of talk about the steps, those early steps that kind of led you to this point in your life. So, for the audience, let them know when did you start dancing?
Yeah. Well, I started at 4 years old. I was born in California, so my mom put me in a ballet tap class at 4,
Okay.
and I loved it. We had a backyard, and I performed everything for my parents after class in our big backyard. Then we moved to Colorado,
Okay.
and then I really started to branch out in my styles there. So did a lot of tap and jazz, ballet still, adventured into hip-hop and contemporary palm. I just really kind of flourished there in Colorado. So that was
Awesome.
That was really great.
So you did kind of the early, what we call like the pre years.
I did.
And then when did you start to kind of branch out into some of like the different styles?
I was probably 5 or 6.
5 or 6. Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of knew.
Yeah.
Your parents knew. If you're throwing
Yes.
shows in the backyard, that's kind of how you know you have a dancer on your hand.
There was a performance every night.
Every night.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
God. Okay. So pictures, you got pictures, videos
Yes.
somewhere?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Well, we're going to deep dive and find that content.
Yeah.
We'll bring it to you guys some point in the future. Okay. So we're talking about the early years, maybe like the, 8, 9, 10.
Mm-hmm.
When did it get a little more serious for you?
Yeah, I would say probably around 9 or 10 is when I joined our ballet company at the studio I was at. And
Okay.
then I auditioned for our competition team as well.
Wonderful.
So I was doing 2 companies.
Okay.
It was really great. And I got my first role in Nutcracker at 7.
Ooh. Okay. Let me see. Angel or mouse?
I was a mouse.
Mouse.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
That was super fun. I was a mouse and a little gingerbread. And then just continued with the Nutcracker. It was so fun. Loved that. And so, yeah, I would say it got pretty serious around there.
Okay.
Once I started getting more involved in the ballet company, traveling to competitions, definitely feeding a lot of passion.
When did you get more serious about the competition side of dance for you? What age were you?
Probably 10, 11.
10, 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, it's funny because sometimes you have people call in and they'll be like, oh, is my dancer behind? And they're like 7. And you're like, no, you're
No, not at all. Yeah.
you're just getting started.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So 9 or 10. And then you were kind of drawn between ballet and then more of that more higher intense, probably some of the jazz,
Yeah.
hip hop,
Yeah.
palm, all that fun stuff. How did you balance which one you fed more?
That's a good question. I did both. I was very busy. I don't know if it was a good choice, but it happened.
Yeah.
I was in the ballet company, and then we had like a palm jazz hip hop team at my studio.
Okay.
Then once I got to high school, I made the varsity palm squad in
awesome.
Colorado. So I was doing technically 3 different teams. It was a lot, but I had really great coaches just to help me with time management because I was young. I was 14 when I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
And my parents were really great and helpful when they needed to be, but they also wanted to teach me advocation for myself. And so
Very good.
it was kind of on me to figure out what's going on in my life. They were there when I needed, but
It's like that healthy balance. We always say this as a parent, you don't want to vicariously live through your child because you might be ushering your passions versus their passions, and one will fight for the attention.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
But going through that, it taught you a lot, probably sacrifice.
Yeah.
Speaking of that a little bit, because people see like, oh, you're a great dancer, and they're like, there's a lot of years, a lot of consistency.
A lot of years. It took a lot of hard work, and there were a lot of hard moments too. It wasn't all sunshine and rainbows.
What? It wasn't just
I know,
easy
right?
and just natural, and you just
I
felt your
wish.
best every time you stepped through those doors?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
And it made a difference when I had a great coach. And I mean, there were some not so great coaches too that definitely stuck out, but the good ones that were intentional and really wanted to work with me just like brought out a really great side of me, and I wanted to work harder. So that's what I did with all 3 teams. I just had to put a lot of effort and really communication with my coaches of, hey, I have this obligation. Can I do this, this, and that? And just kind of working some puzzle pieces together. So
you were drawn to more the inspirational side versus like, we're going to subject you to in a level of intensity, because every kid's different. You have to find where you thrive.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm personally biased. I love the inspirational side, because I feel like when you stoke that passion, it goes beyond the coach, right? Like were you at home like stretching and training
every single day?
Like you didn't have your parents asking you like, hey, did you stretch today? No, because the passion was there.
Yeah.
So totally. I love that side, because I think that speaks more volume to the trajectory that you may take in life.
Yeah.
And you're not going to get people waking you up to go to work when you're an adult. Like, hey, hope you feel better today. Like, get out there. Like, you got to have that drive, that sense of commitment and value from within, and know how to express it outwardly.
Absolutely.
So which one ended up being your favorite out of all the companies? Because you said ballet company, the competition company. I mean, they're different experiences.
They are. At that time in my life, I really loved my ballet company. That was probably my favorite.
Okay. All right. Give it up for ballet.
Yeah, that was a really, really good season of my life.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you give to kids that are kind of trying to navigate which direction to choose for them?
Yeah. Honestly, my advice is give everything a chance. You're going to naturally fall into something that you're a little more passionate about, a little more skill, and that's totally fine. Like there are still some styles that are not my best, but I can still have fun with it. And it's okay to choose and make a decision. So
that's good. No, and that's what we at the Dance Studio Network, we want to see kids do, is like learn how to develop that adult, understanding through the safe place when you're a kid and you can make mistakes. But really not like depending on your parent to carry you and saying like, hey, if I want this, if I want to compete, like I want it, I'm going to work hard, not just on, company rehearsal classes, but in the ballet, in the jazz, in the leaps, in the tap, in, every other genre, like giving it your all.
Totally.
And I feel as though when you have a passion that's ignited, there's nothing that can slow you down or stop you when you have those days that are hard. So what did you tell yourself when those days got hard? Or, you had a lot of school or a lot of stuff going on or something personal, and the studio waits for you. Like, how did you kind of break through that barrier?
That's a good question. There are definitely a lot of hard days, just, outside life kind of creeping in. It sounds simple and kind of cheesy, but I really left it at the door.
Ooh, hold on. Yes, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Leave it at the door. Sorry, a little gold nugget. Remind
and
people.
That's not to say that some of my coaches weren't sensitive to, life things happening, because it does happen. There are situations that every dancer, every person goes through, even teachers and coaches. We all go through something. And that's not to say that they weren't sensitive about it, but it didn't overtake my training and didn't disrupt class. Left it at the door. I had great teachers too that I communicated with and said, hey, I'm having a bad day. We don't need to talk about it, but I'm just having a bad day.
Yeah, just like, hey, just so you know.
Just so you know.
And
that was so helpful.
That's awesome. And I think, that's what's good. Like you said, advocating for yourself. Your parents were like, hey, you need to speak up. And, because it's one thing to go like, what's the idea that the parent has in their mind of where their kid wants to be? And then like, where's the joy, the enthralled enthusiasm of where the kid is at? And sometimes those things can clash, right?
Absolutely. I felt very successful as I got older, just because my parents were so great at, guiding me and helping me, but they weren't doing it for me.
Yeah.
Kind of training me like, hey, this is your thing. This isn't our thing. So you make the decisions. Well,
and it's crazy. And I'll throw you a crazy stat I just read as of December. Employers across all these Fortune 500 companies said 19% of the interviewees showed up with their parent.
Wow. With their parent.
The parent walked into the interview with them. And I'm like, y'all, come on now. Like, let's give these kids a chance to grow. But like, I can't imagine like showing up with that. And, the heart is like, I want to be there for my kid, but
absolutely.
But the whole point is, raising strong leaders and you do that through your childhood.
Absolutely.
You don't just like, I'm an adult now, like I'm going to be super responsible. Like, no, you develop those years of compounded growth so that you have the confidence to hit any stage or interview and bring the value that you have, your choreography or your resume, and show the employer what you are bringing to the table. Yeah, and like, so that's a life skill that I can only illustrate it's not as common
Right.
as it used to be. So
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
fun side note. But as far as like, your parents being with you, what were some of the inspiring things they maybe sewed into your life that kind of helped?
They showed up at every performance competition. My dad was a dance dad. He was into it.
Did he have the dance dad shirts?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't dance, I finance.
Yes,
Yeah, like one of those.
Exactly. No, they were so into it. They weren't too involved where it was overwhelming, but they supported anything I wanted to do within reason.
Yeah.
And kind of going back to how I was on, the Pom Squad, the competition team, and ballet company, they let me do that because they knew that I wasn't going to last in all three for the long run. But to figure out where I wanted to go, they said, yeah, you know what, figure it out. And once I did and made my decision, they respected it and were cheering with me.
So. I love it. So you to quote our trademark, discovered your artist within.
Yes, yeah.
Through exploring opportunities. Where have we heard this one before?
Sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar. It's a grounding effect, you know, like you really, to expect kids to know exactly where they want to be in life at such a young age, I just...
Not realistic.
It's not realistic. So you're putting unrealistic pressures.
Absolutely.
And I think that's one thing that I hate to see in this industry is kids burn out. And the average burnout is 13. Nationally speaking. And I was at a dance teacher event, a big retreat with all thousands of owners. And I'm like, guys, if this is the reality, this is a failure to the student because at 13, you shouldn't be burned out. No. You should be burning bright. Yeah. So that means you as an instructor or as an owner or a parent or student, you all have to look inward and go, where's the disconnect? Yep. And let's have those uncomfortable conversations, right? Like, oh, maybe I'm pushing my kid too hard.
Yeah. And that happens. I see that all the time. And I danced with dancers like that. Their parents,
the trophy chasers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, trophies are great, but that's not what we're doing. It's not all about that.
It's not the end goal.
No, it's not.
And like, I've never seen a kid who's like, I got it first place, and like, I feel fulfilled and content. Yeah. I'm done. Like, I don't know adults who do that. No. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, these are tools to help your kid explore the reality that if you're going to grow up and be a dancer or an artist, it's going to be competitive. Yeah. And you do have to fight for what you believe in, what you're passionate about, but do it sustainably. And if you burn out at 13, 14, 15, then the world never gets to see all the art that you had to give.
Totally.
And that is a struggle for, I know, been in this business a long time. And sometimes it's the parents who really push so dang hard and the kid is like thriving and they're building the foundation and they're building confidence and structure and they're just about ready to take that next step up. But parents, step back a little bit, right?
I agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, hey, this is the real talk time, you know? Like, we didn't come here to sugarcoat it.
No,
like,
real talk.
Yeah.
We got to chill for a minute.
You got to chill. Let your kid grow. And I mean, like, where were you at 10? Did you know. And, you know, I think we have a lot of successful people in our community and that drive is there. And I love excellence. But I love excellence without compromise. Yeah. And that's one thing that we obviously we fight for in the Dance City Network is providing a culture for your kid to grow, thrive, and sustain in artistry. And, you know, again, there's a lot you got to be careful of out there, right? So as far as kind of the next steps, you went from high school, finished dance. Did you graduate at the same studio you're at?
I did not know. So I moved to Texas.
Oh, okay. That's when you made the big move.
Yes.
Okay.
So that was crazy. Moved to Texas when I was 15.
Ooh,
I think. So
that's
I was
tough.
heading into my sophomore year of high school.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was hard. We moved to Georgetown, Texas. It's outside of Austin.
Okay.
And I toured quite a few studios, some high schools. And I ended up at a studio doing mostly just ballet. And then I made the drill team at Georgetown High School. And so I did drill team for 3 years. And graduated there. So yeah, stepped into a brand new style of dance. I mean, I had never heard of drill team. Wearing hat and boots. So foreign.
That's definitely a Texas thing, a Southern thing, and it continues to kind of morph now over the last few years. The directors are getting younger, so I'm seeing like contemporary and hip hop numbers that I never saw before. Right?
Same. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, it's fascinating to see the expression kind of change, but you know, coming to a new state, new program, new things. What were your uphill battles in kind of developing that peer-to-peer trust on a team?
Yeah, that was hard because most of these girls, they knew each other, especially the the returning veterans, they all knew each other. They were friends.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody. Even the new freshmen, they had just went to middle school together. So I didn't know. It was a lot.
It was a lot.
At 15 years old, moving away from my amazing studio. I loved that studio. I would have graduated there had we not moved.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a lot of change for a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
But I was really blessed with a great team, and I think something that helped so much was we had summer practice before school started. And so I was with them every day of the week, and we had team bonding and just a lot of hot practices on that turf. Really does a lot of bonding.
Yeah, like that discomfort actually bonds you.
Oh, 100% it did. Right? Yeah.
It's kind of like when things go too perfect, then you're like, it's not really memorable. No. And then you're like, it was sweating and I had a little bit of water left.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Well, I wanna jump back into part 2 with this and talk about where it led to next.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned for part 2 with Miss Emily Wilkes. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the next part of this show.
Yeah.